Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is the Raptor, and welcome back to Who Would Win and Why. And this time we've got Thor, the God of Thunder, going up against Captain Marvel, aka Shazam. Now, some of you guys that follow my channel closely may know that this video was supposed to be Thor vs. Wonder Woman. That was the episode of Who Would Win and Why that was supposed to be coming out around this time. However, after Death Battle did it, I didn't really think it made much sense for me to do it, because I would probably just be repeating a lot of what they said, so I didn't really see the need. But I decided to replace it with something, and I decided to keep one of the combatants, that combatant being Thor, and I just replaced Wonder Woman with Shazam, and I still think that this is a good fight. I'm excited for it. I hope you guys are excited for it. Let's get right into it. So, who would win and why? Let's find out. So first I'm going to talk about Thor. So when it comes to Thor's strength, this guy is ridiculously strong. He's able to match the bite of the Midgard serpent, meaning that he can match hundreds of trillions of tons of force, and he's able to destroy Silver Surfer's force fields with just one swing of his hammer. So he must be pretty freaking strong in order to do that. He's also able to leave some of Marvel's strongest players, like Juggernaut and the Hulk, completely unconscious at times. Now it is worth noting that some of this is due to the fact that he does have a belt of strength, which doubles his might. But even without the belt of strength, I'm pretty sure he could still do some pretty amazing things. And when it comes to his speed is also very ridiculous. He's able to visually perceive extremely fast-moving objects, and he's able to travel over 500,000 times the speed of light while holding on to his hammer when he's traveling. He's even fast enough to tag Quicksilver in combat and even keep up with the Silver Surfer in combat. And considering that guy can travel at massively faster than light speeds, that is not easy to do. He's probably really fast if he can do that. And when it comes to his durability, Thor is able to tank a planet-busting explosion, meaning that he's able to survive 53 quadrillion megatons of force, and he's able to survive a dip in the sun, meaning that he can survive 27 million degrees Fahrenheit, which is really impressive. He's also durable enough to take blasts from Odin and Celestials, and he's completely immune to diseases, toxins, poisons, electrocution, and also, extreme temperatures. He's very resistant to extreme temperatures, both hot and cold. And when it comes to his stamina, Thor is able to fight for days or weeks or even months without even beginning to tire, and the belt of strength also doubles his stamina. He even has an accelerated healing factor, which is so good that he's actually able to regenerate his entire liver from essentially being turned into glass. He doesn't have like an OP healing factor that allows him to like regrow entire limbs or organs or attach back on his head, but even so, being able to regenerate your liver from something like that means that you have a pretty damn good healing factor. So yeah, that's some stamina for you. Now let's talk about Thor's fighting ability. Thor has been trained since childbirth, and he's been trained in both Asgard and Midgard, or Earth, martial arts, which makes him very versatile in that category. He's also been trained to use weapons to his advantage and just in hand-to-hand combat, without, like, no weapons. And he's also been trained to use his hammer very well in combat. So he's not just swinging that thing aimlessly. He's swinging that thing in a way that will actually trip up his opponents. So yeah, he's actually a pretty good fighter. And when it comes to his intelligence, obviously Thor is not the most intelligent character in the Marvel Universe. That's not to say he's dumb, but he's definitely not the most intelligent. Thor is actually a pretty good strategist. He doesn't show it all the time when he's with the Avengers, but he actually has led his fellow Asgardians into battle under his own strategies and tactics, and they've won because of it. So he must be a pretty good strategist if he's able to do that. And being the God of Thunder, Thor can do a lot of things even without the use of his hammer, such as control over the earth, control over weather, energy manipulation, so on and so forth. But when he does have his hammer in his hand, he becomes a versatility beast. First, let's talk about it. Mjolnir is made out of enchanted Uru, basically making it completely unbreakable, and it is bound to Thor, meaning that Thor can call it back basically whenever it's out of hand. And considering Thor throws that thing a lot, it's probably going to be out of hand a lot. And it's also only able to be picked up by who Odin considers worthy. They can pick it up. If you are considered worthy, you can pick it up, you can wield it, you can use all of its abilities, everything like that. But it has been shown that Odin has a pretty strict definition of worthy. So even though other characters besides Thor have been able to pick up the hammer, it's pretty clear that basically anyone he fights in a regular hand-to-hand combat wouldn't be able to pick it up just on the fly, because there are barely any people that Odin would consider worthy. And this hammer is so powerful that it that actually can shake black holes, but he can do much, much more than that. Here are just some of the abilities that we've seen Mjolnir do. Illusion creation, illusion detection, time manipulation, soul manipulation, teleportation, interdimensional travel, invisibility, intangibility, matter manipulation, energy and magic nullification and absorption, and much, much more, including the God Blast. One of Mjolnir's most powerful things that it can do is called the God Blast, which is a blast that is so powerful, it can harm Galactus and even kill immortals. It can kill the people that aren't supposed to be able to be killed. That's a pretty powerful blast. So Mjolnir is not lacking in power or versatility. And if Thor actually does find someone that can match his abilities, and it gets to the point where he would want to commit murder, then he can actually enter a state known as Warrior's Madness. Now, while in this state, yes, basically all sanity and all strategy is thrown out the window, but basically all of his physical stats is increased tenfold. If he's trading blows with someone at his, that's his equal, if he was doing that before, then definitely after this, he's going to definitely have a lot of upper hands on that opponent. So yeah, you do not want him to enter this state. Now, when it comes to some of Thor's weaknesses, he doesn't have a lot of exploitable physical weaknesses, but it is worth noting that, you know, he does suffer from a superiority complex, and he can get cocky, and a smart enough opponent can use this to their advantage while fighting him. And when it comes to Warrior's Madness, obviously, you know, like I said, all strategies thrown out the window, that's another weakness for you. But even so, Thor is still someone that you never want to underestimate. He has ridiculous strength, speed, durability, and he has a lot of power and versatility with the use of his hammer. I don't know about you, but I definitely do not want to fight a freaking Norse god in a battle to the death anytime soon. Alright, so now that I've talked about Thor, now it's time to move on to Shazam. So Shazam has been said to have the strength of Hercules, and this guy definitely has the strength comparable to Hercules, because the stuff that this guy can do is ridiculous. His strength level is massive. Not only is he able to catch an aircraft carrier, which can weigh nearly 100,000 tons, but he can also, actually overpower and beat Superman in battle, and he can punch with the Force to create a black hole. He can just punch, and a black hole is created. If that's not Hercules-like strength, I don't know what is. This guy is ridiculously strong. And when it comes to Shazam's speed, Shazam is able to move, fight, and react at massively faster than light speeds, and he can even teleport. In fact, he's been able to keep up with Superman in battle, and he even once caught up to a running Flash. Now, keep in mind that this Flash had been running for a while, so he was probably pretty exhausted. But even so, catching up to the Flash under any circumstances is amazing. He's pretty fast. And when it comes, it has been said that he has the speed of Mercury, and Mercury is very fast, so obviously he would be very fast. I don't know what I'm talking about. When it comes to durability, this guy is ridiculously durable. He's been able to take hits from very powerful heroes and villains, such as Superman, this is like the third time I've mentioned Superman, and Black Adam. However, another thing about his durability is that he's a lot like Superman in the sense that he's invulnerable to nearly everything. Basically anything you would find on Earth, such as a gun or any other weapons, they wouldn't really affect Shazam, at all. He's only weak to two specific things, or maybe not so specific, but he's only weak to two things, which are magic and electricity. Now, it is worth noting that he does have some resistance to magic, but using magic against him is still a much better weapon to use against him than, say, something like a regular bullet or other weapons you would find on Earth. Magic is still something that can harm Shazam. And when it comes to electricity, a powerful enough electric discharge can actually change Shazam back into Billy Batson, his kid form. It doesn't even have to be the Shazam lightning bolt that comes from the sky. If it's powerful enough, any form of electricity can actually change him back, which obviously would not be good in the middle of a battle. But even so, other than that, he's basically invulnerable, which shows that he is very durable for the most part. And when it comes to his stamina, this guy not only has an accelerated healing factor, but he can fight for days and weeks and months without even starting to tire. In fact, he's been said, well, it's not really he has been said, but it's implied that he actually has limitless stamina because he's been said to have the endurance of Atlas, and Atlas is able to hold up the sky for all eternity. So theoretically, he should have limitless endurance, so he's definitely not going to be tiring on his own anytime soon. And now let's talk a bit about his intelligence. Yes, Shazam is technically still a kid, just in an adult body, which means that he can get overconfident and unfocused in the middle of a battle. That's obvious. However, once he changes into Shazam, it is worth noting that he gains the intelligence of Solomon. and that means that he basically gains genius-level intellect and becomes a master tactician, which is really interesting when you think about it. Someone who's not that up-to-date with comics or doesn't know a lot about DC may just think that, Shazam is a ridiculously powerful character with the mind of a kid, but it's much more than that. The S in Shazam stands for Solomon. He gains the intelligence of Solomon, which means that he's pretty freaking smart. Shazam also possesses electrokinesis, meaning that he can generate and, manipulate energy in many different ways. Obviously, he has that whole lightning bolt that changes him from Billy Batson into Shazam and vice versa, but he can do much more than that. He can shoot electricity in many different ways. He can manipulate it and generate it, and he can even shoot an attack called the Electroblast, which is an extremely powerful electrical discharge, which comes off of his body. And this is the perfect blend of magic and electricity to severely harm the opponent. When it comes to Shazam's weaknesses, yes, we're already moving into weaknesses. I basically already mentioned all of them. Technically, yes, Shazam is still a child, and that means he can't get unfocused in the middle of battle, and he is specifically weak to two things, which are magic and electricity. However, Shazam is still someone that you never want to underestimate. Because of his godly stats and abilities, he is basically one of the most powerful members that the Justice League has to offer. And while he may still be a little kid, there is nothing little about the power of Billy Batson and the magic of Shazam. Alright, so now that I've gone over both of these characters, it's time for me to say who I feel would win this fight. And I honestly have to say, this fight was so hard for me to decide, guys. Like, honestly, it really was. There were times where I looked over the information and I'm thinking, yes, I definitely think that Shazam would be the winner of this fight. And then there were times where I looked over it again and I'm thinking, wait, no, if this happens, no, I think that Thor would be the winner of this fight. And this happened multiple times. There were times where I had to, like rethink what I was gonna say and everything like that, because I honestly wasn't sure who would win. I had to look over it multiple times. But after I looked over it and I considered every possible thing I could, I honestly believe that Thor would be the winner of this fight. And if you guys think that Shazam would be the winner of this fight, that's completely understandable, because Shazam is still ridiculously powerful, and they are evenly matched in a lot of different categories. So if you feel that Shazam would be the winner of this fight, tell me why in the comments below, because I really want to know. However, let me explain why I feel that Thor would be the winner of this fight. But before I do that, let me talk about the categories where I feel that they're about even. And maybe they're not even that even, but I think that there's no outclassment here. They definitely would be able to keep up with each other. First, let's talk about strength. Both of these guys are ridiculously strong. They have great feats of strength, and they just have a lot of striking power, and obviously Thor has his hammer, which increases that striking power. But when it comes to the feats that they've done, I want to lean more towards Thor, just because I think he's had more feats and more consistent, ridiculous strength feats. And also, you have to consider that when Shazam does overpower Superman, a lot of the main reason why he's able to do that is because basically everything that Shazam is and Shazam does is magical, and Superman doesn't have any special resistance to magical attacks. And before any of you guys bring up that whole lifting infinite pages thing with Superman, I don't really want to use that, simply because some people want to say that both of them actually failed to lift the Book of Infinite Pages, and some people say that it wasn't actually infinite, and some people say that, maybe it was, but Superman was doing most of the heavy lifting, and Shazam still is not infinite. He really wasn't doing any of the work, etc., 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 etc. No matter how you look at it, I don't really think that, using that feat really makes any sense. It doesn't mean that he has infinite strength at all. Again, he still has a finite level of strength, so again, I just don't really see that being used as an argument. However, Shazam is still ridiculously strong. He's been said to have the strength of Hercules. He can make a black hole just by punching, and Superman himself has even stated that he feels that they are equals. So while I still may want to lean more towards Thor in the strength category, Shazam definitely is not outclassed here. At the very, very least, he'd be able to keep up. And besides, both of these characters, by definition, have godly levels of strength, so obviously no one is lacking in this category. When it comes to speed, I want to say that the margin between their speeds are even closer than in terms of strength, because both of them are able to move, fight, and react at ridiculously high speeds, and both of them can teleport. And in fact, when you think about who they fought, Thor has fought characters that should be much faster than him, such as Silver Surfer, and Shazam has fought characters that should be much faster than him, such as Superman and the Flash, or at least he's caught up to the Flash, an exhausted Flash. And when you really think about it, Thor has fought characters that should be faster than Shazam, And Shazam has fought characters that should be faster than Thor. So really, in this battle for both of these characters, their opponent is not the fastest person that they've ever fought. So really, they should be able to keep up with each other in terms of speed. Their speeds are nothing new to the other person. So they definitely would be able to keep up in terms of speed, keep up with each other. And then there are other categories where I feel they're about even, such as power and tactics. In terms of power, yes, Shazam is able to make a black hole just by punching. He's able to punch with the force to create a black hole. But Thor's hammer is powerful enough to shake black holes and shatter Silver Surfer's force fields just with one swing of his hammer. So both of them are really freaking powerful. And when it comes to tactics, both of these characters are really good in terms of tactics. That maybe wasn't good English, but whatever. Shazam, getting genius level intellect by definition gives him good use of tactics, and Thor has used tactics in Asgard many times before, leading his fellow Asgardians into battle. I even want to say that both of them are about even in terms of stamina. Now, technically, I want to say that Shazam has more stamina, because even though both of them have healing factors and both of them have a lot of stamina, like I said, Shazam, by definition, because he has the stamina of Atlas, should have, theoretically, limitless stamina. However, both of these characters have been able to go for, days and weeks or even months at their fullest potential, without even starting to tire. So while I do think that these characters are evenly matched in many different categories, I don't think that the fight would go on long enough for Shazam's advantage in stamina to surface up. I don't really think that the fight would last days or weeks or months, and I feel that if one of them was going to start tiring, it would be because one of them was, hitting the other hard, not because they'd actually start tiring on their own. In other words, I don't think Thor would start tiring on his own because of time. I think the battle would be over sooner than days or weeks or months. So yeah, I feel that they would even be about even in terms of stamina. And yes, I do think that, this is something I was going to mention earlier, I do think that Shazam has the overall advantage in terms of intelligence, because we know that he has genius level intellect and Thor is not the smartest character in the Marvel Universe. But be honest with yourself, what do you think is more important in terms of a battle? Strategies or book smarts? Definitely strategies, and like I said, both of them are about even in terms of that, because they've both used it to their advantage multiple times. But now that I've gone over all of that, now it's time for me to actually explain why I think that Thor would be the winner of this fight. Let's talk about durability. Now, actually, this is another category where I feel that Shazam actually has the advantage, because Thor, while he does have near invulnerability and can take, planet-busting explosions and a dip in the sun, Shazam, like I said, basically has borderline invulnerability except for two things, which is magic and electricity. Luckily for Thor, however, magic and electricity are what he lives and breathes. Every time that he hits Shazam with his hammer, or every time he uses his hammer to, harm Shazam, he's basically hitting him with a hammer full of magic. Everything that the hammer does is magical in nature, literally everything. And we know that the hammer can do quite a lot. And meaning, every time he hits him with the hammer, or every time he uses the hammer to harm Shazam, Shazam is going to be harmed pretty hard, because it is magical in nature, and it is something that can harm Shazam. It is something that he is weak to. Even when his power was cut in half, Thor was able to swing his hammer at massively faster than light speeds. So just imagine how fast he'd be able to hit Shazam with his hammer, and how much strength or how much force he's putting behind that hammer. And it is magical in nature. It's going to hit Shazam ridiculously hard. Everything that the hammer does, every time he hits him with the hammer, it's going to hurt him a lot. So every time he hits him with magical lightning, that's going to do a lot to him, because, that basically mixes both of his weaknesses. And I definitely think that Thor would be able to produce enough electricity to turn Shazam back into Billy Batson. Whether or not he'd actually know to do this, is beyond me. He probably wouldn't, but, I do think it is still possible. Likely, maybe not, but it is still possible. But basically, the bottom line is, while I do overall think that Shazam's durability is better than Thor's, the fact that Thor can exploit both of Shazam's weaknesses very easily really tips it into his favor. Every time that Thor hits Shazam, he's using one of his weaknesses against him. And remember, when Thor fights, he's rarely ever actually using his fists fists to fight, almost every time he hits someone, he's using his hammer, which means that every time he hits Shazam, it's going to hurt him because it's magical, and every time he uses any of the hammer's abilities on Shazam, it's going to hurt him because they're magical. And Shazam, a lot of what Shazam would do wouldn't even really affect Thor that much. And some of you guys might be a bit confused about that. You're thinking, where the heck did I get that from? But I'll talk more about that later in the video, and you'll definitely see what I mean. Now let's move on to fighting ability. I definitely think that Thor has the edge in fighting. Remember, Thor was trained since childbirth, and he's been trained in many different martial arts and trained, with weapons and without weapons. And even though Shazam does have genius level intellect, I don't think he really has the intelligence or, the training to stack up to Thor. Even if he does have some martial arts training, or he does have some knowledge of martial arts, I don't think it would be enough to quite stack up to what Thor can do. Remember, Thor was trained since childbirth. He was trained for as long as he can remember, like in armed and unarmed combat. So I definitely think that he has the advantage in terms of fighting, and I think that he just uses it more often in battle. I like to think that Shazam generally just relies on his speed and strength in battle more so than fighting tactics. And while Thor doesn't always use, his fighting ability in battle, we have seen that he does use it sometimes, and he does use it more often than Shazam does, if Shazam can even stack up to what Thor can do, which I don't think he can, at least not in that category. Another category where I feel that Thor definitely has the edge on Shazam is versatility. Yes, Shazam is very strong, he's very fast, he's very durable, he has electrical powers, he has magical powers, he can teleport, etc., etc. But Thor can basically do all of that and much, much more with the use of his hammer. Like I said, Thor with his hammer is a versatility beast. He has, time and soul manipulation, matter manipulation, interdimensional travel, invisibility, intangibility, etc., etc. And everything that I mentioned, and everything I mentioned earlier in the video, is just a fraction of everything that Thor can do with his hammer. Seriously, he doesn't use it all the time, but he has been shown to use it. That hammer basically ups his versatility by so much, it's not even funny. And yes, he can do some things without the hammer, but when he has the hammer in hand, my god, he can do a lot. And this is what I was talking about with the durability. Here's why a lot of what Shazam would do wouldn't even affect Thor that much. Some of Thor's abilities with his hammer include energy and magic nullification and absorption, meaning that basically anytime Shazam tries to use electrical or magical abilities, and let's be honest, basically all of what Shazam is magical, Thor can either just negate it or absorb it. And that's really interesting, because when you really think about it, both of these characters use electrical and magical abilities, to their advantage in terms of battle, but one of these characters can negate and absorb it completely, whereas the other one is specifically weak to them. And when you realize that, you can kind of tell where the battle is going to go, and whose favor it's going to tip in sooner. Because every time Thor hits Shazam, Thor is using one of his weaknesses against him. And basically nearly every time Shazam tries to use a special ability on Thor, Thor can either just absorb it or negate it completely. It's as simple as that. So you can tell that, Thor will just have the upper hand on Shazam shot for shot. And then there are other things in Thor's favor, smaller things that I feel would tip it in Thor's favor, such as the God Blast. Like I said, the God Blast is powerful enough to harm Galactus and kill immortals. Because of that, I'm sure that one or two shots would be able to severely injure Shazam, if not kill him, especially since it's magical in nature, such as the rest of Mjolnir's capabilities and abilities. And then there's also Warrior's Madness, and I do feel that Warrior's Madness is likely to happen, just because, again, these two characters are evenly matched, and Thor will want to commit murder in a battle to the death, at least eventually. And like I said, all of his physical stats are increased tenfold. So even if Shazam was matching Thor in terms of strength, he's not anymore. He's now like 10 times stronger than him, and basically all the other physical categories. Now, one could argue that Shazam, the gap in terms of intelligence is much greater in terms of Shazam's advantage. Because yes, Shazam even before this point had the advantage in terms of intelligence, and now the gap would be even greater. So Shazam could just use that to outsmart Thor, right? Well, I understand where you're coming from, but this is still a battle to the death. No matter what kind of strategy Shazam comes up with, it's still going to involve having to overpower Thor one way or another. And like I said, his physical categories, his physical stats are increased tenfold. So no matter what kind of strategy Shazam cooks up, I don't think it's going to be able to put Thor down. Thor is still ridiculously powerful at this point, and it's just going to take Shazam by surprise. any kind of strategy he comes up with, it's not going to be able to take Thor down. It's not going to be able to put Thor down. Thor is now ridiculously powerful. And yes, strategy is good, but you know, when you're just that much stronger, sometimes brawn does defeat brain. So overall, both of these characters are ridiculously powerful. They're both about even in a lot of different categories, and they both use electrical and magical abilities to their advantage in terms of battle. However, you can tell that every time that Thor is going to hit Shazam with something that he can do, or at least, you know, with his hammer, Shazam is going to get weakened. And every time that Shazam tries to hit Thor with a special ability, it's really not going to have any effect. And again, once you realize that, you know where the battle's going to go from there. And even though Shazam does have the advantage in terms of overall intelligence, I feel that Thor's fighting ability, versatility, God Blast, Warrior's Madness, Energy Negation and Absorption, Magic Negation and Absorption, and just the fact that he can exploit both of Shazam's weaknesses very easily will prove way too much for Shazam to handle. So, in my opinion, the winner is Thor. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed this battle. I know that I did. I like to think that, you know, I don't even know what I'm about to say. But you know, I really enjoyed it. I like to think that God damn, what am I gonna say? I hope you enjoyed it. So if you did enjoy this battle, please give this video a huge thumbs up. I always appreciate the likes. Comment down below what you thought of it. You know, if you think that Shazam should have won, please tell me why, because I definitely understand where you would be coming from, and I want to hear your explanation. So please tell me down in the comments below. I want to know. And plus, this is just my opinion. If you guys have a different opinion, that's perfectly fine. And if you guys could subscribe to my channel, that'd be so great. That would really help my channel out. I try to make these episodes as often as I possibly can. You know, with school, it is pretty tough, but I'm still trying, and I hope you guys are still enjoying it. Your view is plenty of contribution anyway, so thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed this battle, even if it wasn't Thor versus Wonder Woman. But again, you know, tell me in the comments below what you thought of it, who you thought should have won, everything like that. And next time on Who Would Win and Why, we've got the Green Lantern going up against Nova. See you all then.